Welcome back to the HSF Introduction to Apptainer and Singularity. This episode is about containers and images. You'll hear how to pull Apptainer images from the libraries and how to run commands inside the containers. You will learn to search and pull images from the CLab Singularity library and Docker Hub, and you will interact with the containers using the command line interface. Apptainer provides a command line interface to interact with the containers. You can search, build, or run containers in a single line. You can check the version of the Apptainer or Singularity command you are using with the -- version option. If you use the Singularity command, it will reply no matter whether it's Apptainer or Singularity CE. In this case, I'm using Apptainer version 1.2.5. Apptainer provides also a help command. This is the generic help, and you can get help also on any of the available subcommands. The syntax of the commands in general is formed by Apptainer, global command, options, and then the arguments. Container images are executables that bundle together all necessary components for an application or an environment. It's like a template for containers. While containers are the runtime instances of the images, so they are images with a state. Circle-CI has a nice explanation of the differences. Here you can see the picture where the template is instantiated with values for the different executing containers. So you have your image on the left that becomes the actual container. You can think, for example, that you have your Python installed with your favorite library that you need for work, and then you will run several analyses within the same environment. So your installation of Python and the libraries is the image, and the containers are the analyses that are started with that image. Apptainer Singularity can store, search, and retrieve images in registries, which are searchable catalogs and repositories for image in the container. Images built by other users can be accessible using the command line interface, can be pulled down on your local computer, and become containers at runtime. Multiple registry APIs are supported, like the library, which was the initial and the default one provided in Singularity, Docker to access Docker Hub, and ORES for OCI, Open Container Initiative registries, like the one provided, for example, by GitHub. CLab, the developer of one Singularity flavor, hosts a public image registry, the Singularity Container Library, where you might where many users build images and are available. Apptainer, the Linux Foundation flavor, does not point by default to the CLab registry via the library API as previous version did. But you can change this with a couple of commands. So let's clear the terminal, and then add the remote. To add the remote, I'm using Apptainer remote add. Then I'm adding the name of the remote and the host that's hosting it. No login, since I don't have a particular login on this host. To use the remote, I have to use the Apptainer remote use command. If I'm listing the remotes, now I should be able to see the one that I just added. So to search an image, I could use Apptainer search. And here I'm looking for the possible CentOS 7 images. The search command actually is searching the registry for multiple parts. So it's searching for images, but also for users that have been uploading images, and collections, which are groups of images that are uploaded together or managed by the same people. A little bit like the organization, if you're familiar with the Docker Hub. So while the search is taking place, let's see which will come next. Next, we'll actually pull the library from the container. So here we have Mineral, a lot of images containing CentOS 7. And we'll pick one, particularly the default one. This is downloading the image, and we'll store the zip file, the format of the Singularity image file, in our directory. Besides being able to access the images in the Singularity library, Singularity and Apptainer are able also to download images from Docker Hub, which is a vastly bigger catalog that provides a lot of images. So you can just use the Docker protocol to download images from that. So I can use still the Apptainer pull command. Now I will get the CentOS image. From the Docker repository. So as you can see here, there are a couple of extra steps. At the end, especially, it's Apptainer is building the zip file. So the format of the image in a Docker Hub is different. So it will need to convert it to a zip image and then save it to the current directory. So now how can we use these images? There are several ways to interact with images and start containers. Here we review how to initialize a shell environment and how to execute directly a command inside the image. So to initialize a shell, I can use simply the shell command in Apptainer. Apptainer shell, and then I will use the image, the first image I downloaded, will give me the prompt Apptainer or Singularity. And if I type the command inside, I will see that I'm the same user that I'm actually outside. But if I got, for example, the OS identifier is telling me that I'm using CentOS 7 operating system, while outside I had actually Alma Linux 9 system. To exit from the shell, I can use the exit command. Shortcut for exit is to press simply the Control D command. So if I use the ID command on the outside, you can see that the user is actually the same. But if I check the operating system, it will tell me that it's a different one. This is the one in the host system. So when an outside directory is accessible also inside Apptainer, we say that it's bound or bind mounted. The path to access might differ, but anything you do to its content outside is visible inside and vice versa. By default, Apptainer binds the home directory of the user and a couple of system directories like TMP, the current working directory, and then some directories like the device directory and the proc directory. This means that your files in hostname tilde, which is the home directory, are accessible inside the container. And you can specify additional bind mounts if you want with the dash bind option. For example, let's say you have CVFS. Let's see if we have it in this system here. Yes, we have the CVFS directory. And let's say we want access it inside as a mount directory. Then we can use the Apptainer command, start the shell, use the bind option, and we want to bind CVFS as /mount. So in this case, I get an error because the container that I'm using doesn't have a /CVFS directory. So I will have to pick something that's already available. So bind mounting requires the container to have already the directory. Most likely the opt directory, it's available inside the container. So let's try it with that. And voila, this time it worked. So here is the opt directory. This is exactly the same that I have outside. So when I'm using the Apptainer shell command, I could actually pass directly a URL. In this case, what's happening is that the pulling of the image and its use are done one after the other automatically. For example, let's try to download Rocky Linux 8. And here I'm inside that system. So in this case, I actually tried to download it before, and the image is already in my cache. So it found it there and it started it. If not, I would have an output similar to the one that I have on the web page, where the different blocks are downloaded, and then the OCI image downloaded from Docker is converted to a CIF file. If I don't want to have a shell, but I want simply to execute a command within an image, I can use the exec command in Apptainer. For example, let's exit from this container. And let's use Apptainer exec. So here I'm downloading the root image. So root is a software that's used for columnar analysis. If you're not familiar with it, it's very common in high energy physics. So root project root is the default image for root. And I will start root with the command root-b. This is the root image, and then it's starting root and get me the root prompt. Instead of starting the shell, I started root. So this will run on your system, right? Even if you don't have root installed on your system, it's very convenient. So here as an exercise, I want you to use the Docker image for root, but to start a Python session where PyRoot will be available because it's included in the image. I will let you the exercise, but I'd like to remind you a few key points that we saw in this lesson. So the use of Singularity -- version will let you know which version of Singularity or Apptainer you are using. And it will be very useful in case you need support to tell someone was not working. A container can be started from a local CIF file or directly with the URL of the image. So the local CIF file can be obtained by pulling down a container. Apptainer is also compatible with Docker images, providing access to a very large collection of images in Docker Hub. You can get a shell inside your container with the command Apptainer shell, and then the path to the file on the URL of the image. And you can execute a command inside your container with the Apptainer exec command to bind directories from the outside to the inside of the container. You can use the -- bind command option. And we'll see more about that actually later in this course. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next episodes.